So I have another handout for you. I hope that's okay. Here, let me just start over here. So that's coming around, and I've got more if we need it. Thank you for coming out this morning. It's nice to have a wonderful turnout for an important program. I know that the other rabbis have spoken about that, but it is nice to see so many people from different walks of life within our synagogue, different ages, for a chance to come together and learn a little bit about a place that means so much to us. And my topic this morning is how I relate to Israel from a spiritual standpoint. And it really goes all the way back to the Torah. Did everyone get a copy? It should come right there. You may have to share. I apologize if I didn't make enough copies. And the first quote you'll see on your page comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. You should know, by the way, that this particular verse means a lot to our evangelical friends. They often look at this verse as one of the many reasons, one of the core reasons why they support the land of Israel. It says very clearly here, and God said to Abraham, go forth from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make a great nation of you, and you will give a blessing. You will give your blessing, and you will make your name great. Be a blessing. And then it goes on to say, I will bless those that bless you, and curse the one that curses you. But from the very beginning, the 12th chapter, we've gone through the creation story, the story of Noah, the flood, the Tower of Babel story, and now we begin again. God has another plan. God has another plan to better humanity. He's tried with the flood. That didn't work. So now what he's going to do is he's going to create a family that can live by example. And when this family follows laws, when it follows certain rules, then they will hopefully serve as an example for other people to follow God's ways. But that all has to come from somewhere. It can't just be everywhere. It has to start from somewhere, a land that God will show Abraham. And this is the land of Israel. And so from the very beginning, our people are given a home, a place in which to worship God, follow God's rules, and then from there spread to the entire world. And so it all begins here in Genesis 12. And this continues after our patriarchs and matriarchs to the land of Exodus, the Moses story. And here it says Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 through 8. The Lord said, I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. Of course, by this time they're slaves in Egypt. And I have heard their cries from their oppressors, for I know their pain. I will go down to Egypt and save him from the hand of Egypt, and I will bring him up from this land to a land that is good, and wide to a land that flows with milk and honey. And of course, again, the land of Israel becomes the goal, the place that the slaves can be brought to, a place where they can follow God's rules and God's laws, a place of freedom, a place of independence. And now we remember these ideas every day in our daily prayer book. So we have the Torah, we have the book of the prophets, we have the writing section of the Bible. But these ideas continue in what we as Jews pray every single day. And we see it, for example, in the Amidah. This connection to the land continued after the destruction of the temples. Jews spread throughout the world, but the connection stayed, the connection continued. And we see it here, for example, in the Amidah. Let our eyes see your return to Zion with mercy. Bless you, O Lord, the one who returns his divine presence to Zion. And then it also says, sound the great shofar for our freedom. Raise the banner to gather our exiles and gather us together from the four corners of the earth. Bless you, O Lord, the one who gathers in the dispersed of God's people Israel. So we pray this every day. It's something I want to get to in just a little bit. It's something to start thinking about as I go through these texts. We pray this, and for 2,000 years, our great-great-grandparents couldn't go there. But now we can. I could get on a plane tonight and be there by tomorrow night. I could get an El Al flight, or a United flight, even a Turkish Air flight, which actually isn't a bad airline. And believe it or not, that's the last time I was there, I went on Turkish Air. But I could get to Israel within 24 hours. Why am I not there? I pray this every day that I'm supposed to go. And now we can. Something to think about. Because for the rabbis in the Talmud, we see now Israel was very important to them also. Many people don't realize the next text that we actually have two Talmuds. We have a Jerusalem Talmud and a Babylonian Talmud. Two Talmuds written. And most people assume, oh, we probably use the Jerusalem Talmud to come up with many of our laws, many of the rabbinic enactments that came after the completion of the Tanakh. But actually, we use the Babylonian Talmud, the rabbis who lived in what is present-day Iraq. But there they say, the very air of the land of Israel makes one wise. Now, some Israelis are wise, some are not so wise, but according to their Talmud, it does. Part of the 7 wedding blessings. You've all been to Jewish weddings. You hear it there, the 7th blessing that the cantor usually recites, and we sometimes will translate in English, but it says, "May we soon hear, Lord our God, the sound of joy and celebration in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, the voices of a bridegroom and a bride." And thank God we can now hear those voices. If you've ever been, next time you go to Israel, try to go to a wedding. You may not even be the guest, you can be a wedding crasher. But there's something very powerful about fulfilling these words when you see a wedding happening in Israel. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov used to say, "Wherever I go, I'm going to the land of Israel." Part of being a Jew is thinking about Israel constantly. That land is constantly on our minds. How are we elevating ourselves? So if we get to visit, if we ever decide to move there, are we spiritually ready to live on that plane? Are we spiritually ready to move up to the land of Israel? Because of course, when one makes Aliyah, one is literally going up to the land of Israel. Now, if you'll turn the page on the back side, Shir HaMalot, Psalm 126, is how we introduce the Birkat HaMazon, in English, the grace after meals on Shabbat, and festivals, and special occasions. Now, this is what they would recite when they were leaving Israel. And they came back after the first exile, after the destruction of the first temple. And here it says, a song of steps. When the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like dreamers. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. We are glad. Bring back our captivity, O Lord, like the streams of the Negev. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He goes forth weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come back with shouts of joy, bringing his sheep with them. And they would recite that, the Song of Ascents, coming back to the land of Israel. And finally, I want to share with you one more text. And before I do, then I want to reemphasize the point of how we as Jews kept our connection to the land of Israel from a spiritual standpoint. And I apologize if one of the rabbis already mentioned this, but even if they did, I think it's an important point to reminder. Often the world looks at us in awe. How is it a people that was dispersed from its land in 70 CE, almost 2,000 years ago, was able to keep that connection to a land which they, for the most part, did not live in? Yes, there were Jews left in the land of Israel. There were pockets of Jewish communities in Israel. But the majority of the Jewish population lived outside of Israel, spread throughout the world. And yet we kept that connection to the land. And as we've gone through some of these texts, and of course there's many more, the answer is obvious. That connection was reminded to Jews, our ancestors, for century after century at weddings, in daily prayer, before they recited the Birkat HaMazon, when they read Torah, when they read the book of Psalms. It was constantly a reminder, and thus it made it very easy for Jews to keep that reminder. One of my favorite books, I read it many, many years ago, and one of those books I've been thinking about picking up again, The Jew and the Lotus. I don't know if you've ever heard that book before. It's a great book. And basically, in a nutshell, the Dalai Lama, about 20, 25 years ago, was concerned because, as you know, the Chinese government put his people in exile. He's in a diaspora right now. And he wanted to know, what is the secret of the Jewish people? How is it they were in diaspora outside of the land for so long, and yet kept that connection and one day returned? It's unprecedented in human history. So the Dalai Lama invited rabbis and Jewish scholars to his home in Tibet and wanted to get to know them and find out, how is it they made that connection? So the book's a fascinating book. It talks about the encounter and the stories, but it came down to this. It was these rituals, it was these rules, it was these laws, it was these celebrations that kept that connection. So all the more so for you and me, that we have to make sure to pass these on to future generations so they too keep that connection. They too keep those bonds strong. And so that when we go to Israel, when they go to Israel, they see it differently than going to Mexico or Hawaii or on a ski trip or going to Europe. There's something more important when you go to Israel. And I think that's emphasized really nicely in this famous poem by Yehuda Amichai, the famous Zionist poet, Israeli poet, who writes the following. Would someone like to read this? It begins right there where they came here. Would like to read it? Go ahead.
They came here to visit the mourners. Louder. They came here to visit the mourners. They squat at the Holocaust Memorial. They put on grave faces at the Wailing Wall, and they laugh behind heavy curtains in their hotels.
They have pictures taken together with our famous dead at Rachel's tomb and at Herzl's tomb and on top of Ammunition Hill. They weep over our sweet boys and must act over our tough girls and hang up their underwear to dry quickly in cool blue bathrooms.
So one more paragraph, and of course he's describing the tourists, you and me, when we go to Israel. Go ahead, read that last part.
Once I sat on the steps at the gate of David's tower. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong place.
No, that's right, you got it.
I placed my 2 honey baskets at my side. A group of tourists were standing around their guide, and I became their target maker. You see that man with the baskets? Just right of his head, there's an arch from the Roman period. Just right of his head. But he's moving. I said to myself, redemption will come only if their guide tells them. You see that arch over there from the Roman period? It's not important, but next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who's bought fruit and vegetables for his family. Wow.
So what is Yehuda Amichai saying? What's the message trying to get across?
Today is important.
Today is important. Right, the Israelis. It's very easy for us living in Houston, Texas to gush over all these texts, these connections, this love that we all feel. But let us never forget that there are almost 7 million Jews living there who put their lives on the line every single day. That have to send their children to the army, that have to pay some of the highest taxation rates in the world, that are constantly concerned about what may happen. Yes, we have crime here in Houston. Horrible tragedies happen in our neighborhoods. We have floods. Hopefully not this week. But in Israel, there's something even more sacred that they potentially give up when you have to send your son and your daughter to the army for 2-3 years, and for your sons, really in reserve duty for decades. So I love what Yehuda Amichai is saying here. Let us not forget that we can go there now, today. We can live out these texts. You can see the places that the Torah describes. I know my colleagues feel the same way. There's no greater joy when we get to bring you to Israel and show you the places that we spoke about in a sermon, show you the places we read about in the Torah or in a Haftorah portion. There's nothing more powerful. But yet we can do that simply because those Israelis that Yehuda Amichai is describing are doing it for us. They are our guardians. They're putting their lives on the line every day. So spiritually, we can be uplifted by going there and talking about them. And so I always try to remind people when I take them to Israel, it's not going to Hawaii. It's not going to France or Italy. There's something even more. And one time someone said something to me. He said, when we go to visit Israel, we're not just tourists. It's Jews for something more. What's the name? It's been suggested that we go to Israel, we're really spiritual pilgrims. As it has been said, tourists go through the land, but a spiritual pilgrim, the land goes through them. When we're tourists, we go through the land, but as a spiritual pilgrim, the land goes through us. And finally, I mentioned earlier that struggle that I know many of us may feel. Why am I not living there? Just celebrated Yom HaZchut, 68th birthday of Israel. I could move there tomorrow. You get some nice benefits, by the way, when you move there. There's some organizations, you get tax breaks, you get a little money, you get a little stipend, a little housing. Jobs are good. I was just with Bradley, one of our Gabbaim yesterday on the Bima. His daughter made Aliyah. She absolutely loves it there. She's got a vibrant life, beautiful friends. They spend every day outside. Brad's like, Malk and I may have to think about this one day. I mean, this is real. We can really do this. Houston's great. I love Texas, don't get me wrong. It'd be hard to be away from football. But why don't we? So I think Elie Wiesel allows me to sleep at night, just a little bit. Because this is what Elie Wiesel says. How can it be explained that a Jew like myself, attached to the destiny of Israel with all the fiber of his being, has chosen to write, teach, work, found a family, and to live far away in a social and cultural environment that is far too generalized for that of our ancestors? Israelis put this question to me, as they do other Jews in the diaspora. Is there a satisfactory response? If there is, I don't know it. For the moment, this is all I can say. As a Jew, I need Israel. More precisely, I can live as a Jew outside of Israel, but not without Israel. And a very important reminder for us, and God willing, for our grandchildren and children and future generations. I hope they'll always agree with Elie Wiesel. I can live as a Jew outside of Israel, but not without Israel. And so that I wish everyone also a Chag Sameach. Earlier this week, of course, we celebrated Yom Ha'atzmaut. Thank you, everyone.